Hi guys, welcome back to Defining Moments. I'm Suzanne Quast. And you know, we've all had moments in our lives of extreme discomfort, which was maybe really painful or maybe even embarrassing. Well, my guest today is going to share that it's necessary. It's necessary because on the other side of that discomfort lies the opportunity for transformation and innovation. My guest is Sterling Hawkins. He's been in Forbes, he's done a TED Talk, he's a keynote speaker and an entrepreneur. And today he's going to explain that discomfort is the only thing that lies between us and living up to our potential. I think you guys are going to really dig this episode. Here are his moments.
Beating like the sound of love.
Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. That sounded so great. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have to tell everybody, we went to college together, but we didn't know each other in college.
Right. It was only, a month ago we discovered we went to the same school and got acquainted.
Right? Bentley. It was Bentley College back then, but it's Bentley University now.
That's right.
Which has a population of, I feel like, 5 people. So maybe 5,000.
I think it might be 6 now.
6. So we are, exactly, super small school. So it's weird that we never ran into each other. But I had a girlfriend who went to Bentley and sent me your TED Talk and was like, do you remember this guy? And I was like, I don't. And then I watched it and I was like, but I should. So for people who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and then what the defining moment was for your transformation?
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
I speak and run workshops on innovation, exponential growth, and transformational leadership, or how to realize these massive changes in our business and in our lives. And you've heard this a couple of times now. But I was kind of down and out several years back. I had a family business fall apart, so my financials and my family fell apart to some degree. My girlfriend broke up with me. I went into what I'm pretty sure is low-grade undiagnosed depression. And I had all of this anxiety about it because I've done some great things in my past.
Probably embarrassed.
Totally embarrassed. And I moved in with my parents, which made it even worse. And I'm like, here I am in my early 30s. I've been successful in some things, and now I'm totally down and out. Well, what do I do? Mm-hmm. And my mom said a lot of things to me when I was little. And one of them that stuck out was the way out is through.
Which I love, for the record.
Right. It turns out it's actually Robert Frost. It's not
whatever.
a Sterling Hawkins mom quote. But it just kept coming to mind. And just randomly, I got this email blast for a conference in Singapore. Mm-hmm. And I was terrified to speak in public. I was a little bit terrified even to be in public with all this stuff going on. And so I literally hit the respond button and I wrote, why don't you have me speak? Best, Sterling. Mm. Now, I don't know if the stars aligned or I got lucky or maybe the conference director was just in a good mood that day, but he wrote back to me and we end up getting on the phone and having this conversation. And I tell him, well, what I want to talk about, which is how startups are successful, what it takes to be successful. And we go back and forth and we agree on a budget for the whole thing. All of a sudden, I've agreed to speak on this big stage in Singapore to thousands of people. And I'm like,
holy,
what did I just do, you know? And so I went into this intense training for it. I went to Toastmasters, I practiced, I wrote my speech, I practiced the deck again, and I wouldn't exaggerate to say I did it hundreds of times before I delivered it. Wow. And terrified when I got up on the stage, but it was so ingrained in me that it just came through me. Mm. And it turns out I did a pretty okay job. It was voted best of the whole show.
Oh, wow.
And the conference director put me in touch with all of his conference director friends. And they're like, well, you got to have this guy. And all of a sudden, it turned into a thing. And, well, here I am today.
That kind of gives me the chills and even makes me emotional because I feel like, there's people out there watching this who are in that moment. Maybe they're fired. Maybe they're going through a divorce or a heartbreak. And they're in this moment of just sheer doubt, discomfort, uncertainty, and it's
Yeah.
like, what do I do to get out? And it's the only
Yeah.
way out is through.
Exactly.
And what I believe is that life happens for you and not to you. And if I believe that, then I can't pick and choose when that pertains to my life.
Yeah.
That means the good, the bad, the ugly. They are
Yeah.
opportunities for us to grow.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to go deep inside of us and to see what we're actually made of.
Yeah.
Like, how uncomfortable do we want to get in order to create a change?
Yeah.
So for you, it must have been so uncomfortable. And then
Yeah.
you also talk about the biology of how we're made to
Yeah.
avoid comfort. Or to avoid discomfort?
Yeah, well, first, I think it's important to look at innovation as something bigger than just technology, because sometimes it gets looped in this whole world of, well, I've got an innovative cell phone and we're implementing this new tool and we've got this new computer. And how I look at innovation is a significant positive change. So
Okay.
it could be technology, but it could also be your financials or personal relationship or team performance for all it matters. And the key distinction here is that we're not talking just about ideas, like a good idea, because you could have an innovative idea. What we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, is realized innovation, where that idea and new action come together to create something new in the world. And there is, like you were saying, a lot of biology behind it. I mean, our brains have been programmed to keep us safe, which evolutionarily is genius, right? Avoid the things that are dangerous, the bear, the crocodile, the falling rocks, and we survive.
Yeah.
But in the modern world, most of us aren't dealing with those things anymore.
No, we're not being chased by tigers.
Right, but we have the same biological response to it. Speaking in public, for example, right?
Oh,
You get
yeah.
that same like, oh my God, I'm gonna die feeling. And when we embrace that discomfort versus run from it, it's almost like opening up the throttle on an engine. It's where ideas and new action can come together. And it's why, for example, I think I said this in my TED Talk, athletes can perform by as much as 12% above where they train when they're competing in the Olympics or in some big race, because it's the pressure that lets them perform at a higher level than they can otherwise. Does that make sense so
That
far?
does make
Yeah.
sense. No, so the pressure. So then do you think these athletes, because it's also in what you did for your talk in Singapore, do you think it's also the practice and preparation for that moment?
There's no question. Yeah, I
So
mean,
do you think then, okay, my follow-up question to that then is, and something you mentioned just a second ago, is, knowledge without action doesn't yield results.
Right.
And what I try to do, at least, we live in a time now where there's amazing content, there's
Right.
amazing podcasts, there's thought leaders, we're inundated with so much quality knowledge and
Yeah.
content. And what I try to do is, at least in my vlogs or in these interviews, is give people practical tools to walk away from and say, okay, I can implement that into my life. So what
Right.
are actionable steps that you think people can take that
Yeah.
can lead to transformative results in their lives?
Well, I think that's a great point first, is knowledge alone, it's great, right? I love learning new things, but it doesn't get you anything. And in this world where there's more podcasts and books and courses and everything else, we're like inundated with this new knowledge with the illusion that it makes us better or different people, and it doesn't. It's only when we kind of cross that into the world of action that we can start to realize some things. And I look a lot at brain science. I'm not a brain scientist by any means, right? But I read a lot of books and I talk to them and I've interviewed them. And our conscious brain, our prefrontal cortex, where we can like think and know we're thinking, processes about 50 bits of information every second. It's an amount of information, right? Our unconscious mind processes over 11 million bits of information every
Wow.
second. Right. So that's an incredible disparity, right? We've got this whole room available to us in terms of potential, but we can only see something, the size of this speck on the table. It works out to like 0.00045% conscious.
That's insane.
Right? And that's what we look at every day, and that's what looks like the world to us. It looks like we're seeing everything, because I see you, I see the pillows, I see the cameras. But when we're in discomfort, it starts to reframe and refocus that 50 bits of information on a new and critical 50 bits that actually give you new results. And to answer your question, I'm coming back to it the long way, right?
Yeah, no, this is interesting.
Is there's 3 steps to it. The first is we'll create an impossible goal, declare an impossible goal. I'm not saying grow an additional finger.
Or like me to say that I'm going to be the first woman in the NBA. Like,
Right.
That's like,
Right.
even though that was my
Right.
childhood dream,
Fair
that's not what we're talking about.
Right, like impossible for you, given your current circumstances. It's just outside what you could reasonably accomplish. So you declare it. So you have to say it to people. Say it to your boss, put it on Facebook, tell your friends and family, whatever it is. The second step is, well, take measurable action towards it. Because if you're taking action towards something that was previously impossible, well, you've got to say new things. You've got to do new things. And I would almost guarantee you some of those things are going to be uncomfortable. But it's by saying and doing new things, you get new results. And 3 is you've got to share those results. You said earlier, the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. Of course, the successes, right? Like you really want to show those off, but also the failures. Because it's inside of the failures that you kind of make it okay for others. You're putting yourself on the line for significant positive change, innovation.
Yep.
And people can see that. There's a real authenticity to it, and they learn from it.
Okay, go ahead.
And the last piece, right?
No, I love it.
Like I constantly want to arrive somewhere like, okay, well, I did the 3 steps and now I'm here. And it's like, oh no, you're still alive, you're still human, you still deal with the same constructs. It's one of these things that we call like a mountain with no top.
Okay.
You just keep climbing. You never actually arrive. So new impossible goal, new measurable action, share new results, and then around and round we go. And that's kind of the growth cycle that I work with entrepreneurs and businesses in, is how do we step into that, I call it the innovation gap, or step into that discomfort, kind of get our bearings and orient ourselves and share some of the results and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Yeah.
Well, I would say there's probably somebody watching who says, I hear that and I'm
Yeah.
on board and I love that, but
Yeah.
I'm scared or I don't know how to do it. What would your advice be to somebody like that? Because I'm sure you deal with entrepreneurs or even like people in general who hear that,
Yeah.
but they don't but they're maybe not also have predispositioned as a person to take those types of risks.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I am that person, right? I don't want to take risks. I do now much more often because I know how all the neurology and biology and strategy of the business actually works. But at the same time, if I can do it, and I'm not special by any means, I've got the same biology as everybody else out there, anybody can do it. And it's really just taking the first step. So, take something like weight loss. I wouldn't say, well, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in the next 3 months. That might be a little too impossible for you.
Okay.
But you could start taking some steps. You could say to a friend or a family member, hey, I'm going to start running every day. Will you hold me to account for that so we can start measuring it? And I don't care, it could be half a mile. And then you keep doing that, and then you step out a little bit further and say, okay, well, now I'm going to run a mile. And now you're starting to post it on Facebook. And you start to build momentum. So the key is not let's swing out really big with something that's totally impossible and then I'm going to be disempowered by it. It's got to be something that's just outside of your comfort zone that you can actually start taking actions towards.
And I would also piggyback on that and say when you do that, you also build a sense of trust and self-love with yourself.
Totally.
And let's face it, when you have a trust in a relationship, it thrives.
Yeah.
So when you keep little promises to yourself every single day, that builds confidence. Not only that, but it's like putting deposit in the bank.
Exactly.
Right? And it's like, oh, like you said, I did
Yeah.
this every day for a week, and now look where I am. And it's the process.
Exactly.
And also I want to say for me too, what's been really helpful, and
Yeah.
look, I'm a big advocate of living in the present moment and
Yeah.
all of that. But I thought about this because my grandma died about a year ago. And when I was with her in the nursing home and you talk to older people, one of the things that older people have that is really heartbreaking is regret. it's like poison, it's toxic. It's like, it's this thing that like they can't, it's hard to make peace with.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're faced with this moment of, I'm terrified of what people think, I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid I'm not worthy or whatever, to also then think, would I rather live with the regret of never trying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think for me, I'm really trying to practice that. And that to me is way worse.
Yeah, totally. And it's hard, right? But it's just kind of a natural evolution. As you gain years, it starts to feel like more pressure. I think part of the reason I was so beat up in my early 30s was because I was in my early 30s, and I'm like, Sterling, you should be so much more than this now. You should be successful, and you've done these things, and you've screwed it all up, right? And I think what you said is genius. It really is getting present to, well, you only get this one life. You get this one day or 1 hour. And when you're present to that, it does start to shift like, oh yeah, I am going to take some of those actions. I am going to do that one extra thing. Or maybe say that thing to a loved one. You know, that can be uncomfortable too.
That's true. What do you think are common pitfalls for people in business or in their personal life?
Well, I think generally avoiding discomfort is a huge one, right? And that's what the whole conversation's about. But how do I say it? When we're not aware of it, our natural predisposition is to avoid the things that confront us. So if I'm afraid to speak in public, I'm not going to go on stage. Or, if I'm afraid to start my business, I'm never going to file the paperwork and file the patent or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? And when we can shift our lens and say, you know what? It's actually where I feel discomfort. Those are the things that I need to do. It gives us some additional access to it. And that's not that I'm like the shining example of this, right? But oftentimes now where I'm uncomfortable, I'll notice it and I'll be like,
That's where
now
it's
I
at.
have to do that.
That's the thing I have to do. Because we shouldn't
Exactly.
protect ourselves from it. We should actually expose ourselves to it.
Exactly. And take a step beyond it, not just expose yourself, but share with people about it. Hey, I'm afraid to speak.
And I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it
And I
anyway.
signed up for a speaking class.
Yeah, and what's so cool is over time especially, but even in the beginning, that's really inspiring to people.
You're right.
You know,
Actually.
to watch somebody put themselves on the line, like everything they are and everything they're not, to do something that they're uncomfortable with, like that's moving
You're
to
right.
you. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if I'm scared to speak at, a Toastmasters club or in front of 10,000 people. It's your human experience. And if it's confronting to you, other people see it and they can kind of see your bravery come through.
So we've talked a lot about discomfort.
Yeah.
The way out is through. No, but I'm curious. And do you think that suffering is required for growth?
Suffering, I don't think so. I think suffering is a continual avoidance of discomfort.
Ooh, okay. Say that again.
Suffering is a continual avoidance of discomfort, right? Because your life, your business, your career, your relationship is in a certain way today. And parts of it you might just deal with. Or said another way, if it's really bad, you're suffering with it. And you're only suffering because you're avoiding the discomfort that you need to go through to get to the other side. Now, I think pain and heartbreak and embarrassment are necessary components, right? We do have to experience some of those things. And when we do, we become bigger than it. We're almost free from it. But if we're avoiding discomfort, then that's actually where suffering lives.
I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so then what advice would you give to your younger self? Having said all this, this is so profound.
Yeah,
Like,
I'd probably just give them a hug,
Aw.
Like, being human's not an easy thing. I think it looks easy. Like we all get up in the morning and you put your makeup on and you take a shower and you go to the gym, some of us, and you go to work. But it's not easy. We deal with this voice in our head all the time, and the voice oftentimes isn't on our side.
no.
And for me, and I think for a lot of people, I just kind of hug my younger self and be like, you're okay, man. It's all right. I love you.
I got you. You're gonna be fine.
Exactly.
No
Yeah.
matter what life throws at you, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, and if the younger version of me could understand that discomfort was actually my access to something, then I think I would look at all the things I was dealing with totally differently. because then it becomes exciting. Like, wow, I'm confronted by this, and now I get to create something from it.
So we're going to end on this, and I can't believe it's already over.
Wow,
But-
it went so fast.
Right, it did. Like, I feel like we just tipped the iceberg. But if you
Yeah.
could define the legacy you want to leave behind in a couple of words, what would it be?
It's a great question. Well, I think if I can be an example for one person or several people or many people, that confronting that discomfort to alleviate the suffering, like if I can show people the way to that, individuals, businesses, or anything else, like that's what my life's for. That's why I'm here.
Well, I think you're doing a damn good job.
Thank you.
So having said that, if you guys know anybody who's going through an uncomfortable, extremely discomfort, or an extreme discomfort right now, please send them this video. Hopefully this inspires them, motivates them, and gives them some actionable tools
That's right.
for it to be different. Thanks for watching.